I've been going through some things. For as long as I've had them, there have always been two constant comforts in my life, two pillars to fall back on when things became too much. Coffee and Toby Fox games. I was introduced to both around the same time, as a very, very sick teenager who was falling asleep in the middle of his classes and desperately needed something to hold on to. I had few friends at the time, but that was okay. It had to be. Still, I desperately needed something to pick up the slack, and for some very formative years of my life, Undertale and its vast fandom was a lifeline. There were little limits to the game in my mind. It always felt like something new was waiting just out of reach, just around the corner. Just because you couldn't see it didn't mean it wasn't there, and my mind ran with the possibilities. The underground was bigger than you could ever see, and just because Frisk's path was one way to get through it didn't mean there weren't others. The countless stories I saw other people making about the other fallen children, the fan comics, and the AUs definitely said as much. So why were so many of us charmed by this, on the surface, simple-looking RPG that took the internet by storm? What is it about this game that even after 10 years and a sequel that Undertale was always meant to be the test for, that still draws us in? It's a simple thing, really. Charm and heart. I booted up my slightly modded copy of Undertale for one reason alone. I needed to capture some footage of the Gaster followers for a completely separate project. It was supposed to be a quick thing. Get through the ruins, go to Hotland, maybe get the Gaster door if I followed the mod's instructions right. Bam! Done. A quick and simple test I probably could have knocked out in an afternoon. Coincidentally, I started playing the morning right before the live stream of the 10th anniversary was going to start, and I was mildly curious about joining in later to see what all the fun was supposed to be about. But then, so very slowly, like a cat creeping up on a bug, I started enjoying myself. There are these wonderful side interactions in Undertale that can pop up on you if you don't know where to look, and I'd played the game enough times that it had become second nature for me to seek them out. If you head into the area past Gifrot and in front of the mysterious door, there's a special enemy you can encounter called Glide, whose entire quirk is that he's completely full of himself. If you want to summon him, you have to stay moving around for 2 minutes, which is almost certainly a reference to that one area I haven't gotten to yet in Earthbound where you have to stop playing the game for 3 minutes. He packs quite the punch for an early game enemy, so while I'd known of him, I'd never had the privilege of getting to beat him until this very playthrough. I felt just the tiniest tinge of pride when I won, and I knew I'd been pulled in again. What an odd feeling, that pride. Wonderful, but odd. I thought I was too old to feel that way again. So imagine my delight a day later when Glide showed up on the tail end of the live stream only to complain about being overshadowed by the mysterious door opening up. Them's the breaks, fishy. The main characters were a joy from moment one, of course. Flowey and Toriel set the tone for exactly what kind of game this was going to be, and it hurt like hell to run through all of this old, sad mom's dialogue to tell her that I couldn't stay forever. You're only using Frisk as a vessel for your journey, of course, and life can't be as simple as being tucked under someone's wing and waiting it out forever. Eventually, we all have to go out on our own, in some manner. Which is hard to do when listening to the soundtrack in our home. Home is like being tucked into bed with a warm blanket fresh out of the dryer, or making a hot chocolate after a long day. It's cozy. It's a track that makes you want to stay. While I prefer the Deltarune counterpart, You Can Always Come Home, you just can't ignore what came first. I love Sans. Of course I do. How the heck did whoever's following you manage to break that heavy stick? Only to be perfectly punctuated by childish humor. His attitude was always something I found so charming growing up, and so like-minded now. Despite his laziness, he always seemed so mature and put together when I was younger, and I was thrilled to see this mental image hadn't changed. So many layers to someone with a simple presentation to him. Mysterious older brother of an equally mysterious younger brother that just recently moved into town. No wonder I and the rest of the internet went goo-goo over him. It's hilarious to look back on now. It felt almost like bumping into a peer you haven't seen in a long time, as opposed to meeting a cool older guy who was just way out of your league. Papyrus, though, was a different sort of delight, like seeing a grown-up version of a fellow autistic schoolmate. Almost unbearably kind, he's the only video game character in my memory who takes you on a date only to turn you down right after, all for the sake of your unlikely friendship. I'd never bothered much with the phone calls he sent you in the game when I was little, and I wish I had because I adored seeing this side of him. Again, there are things you can completely miss out on if you don't take the time to actually do them, and Papyrus's phone calls are one of them. Despite how much he has to say, we probably know less about him than we do Sans, and I don't think that's by accident. Those brothers are mysterious for a reason, baby. It's why I love that Deltarune brought so many more questions than answers with Sans' inclusion. And again, Undertale is full of these charming little moments just off the beaten path. My favorite little side quest I stumbled into happened after I went inside the MTT resort and slept in one of the huge beds. When you wake up and talk to the adjacent rooms, they mistake you for room service and ask you for 2 items, a CT and a cinnamon bun. I didn't think much of it at the time, but after one of the many trips from Gerson to Temmie, I spotted a CT in his shop and decided to pick one up, just for fun. Plus, I was right next to the river person, so it took less than a minute to pop over to Snowden and grab a cinnamon bun from QC. See, the thing is, I was already pleasantly surprised that Undertale actually rewarded you for this very missable interaction already. But any other game would have just had the character on the other side of the door open it, thank you, and that would have been it. But no. Undertale has you pour what was most definitely cold tea under a crack, or flattening the cinnamon bun to oblivion. And that's their preferred method of consumption. Man, this game. It also doesn't hurt that you get a good chunk of change out of it. I should probably talk about the money thing. The modded copy of Undertale I played was one that put in everything from all of the fun values and the console versions of the game, since I had never been able to play those myself before and I was curious to see what they had to offer. Those were the only changes. Scout's honor. But the reason why getting money is a bit of an art in this game is that it can either take an hour or 5 minutes if you know what you're doing. Just fill your inventory and any blank space in the dimensional boxes with cloudy glasses and sell those to Temmie. The most tedious thing about it is worrying about being ambushed by Aaron if you have a loan of defense. And why did I need so much money, do you ask? Temmie armor, I hear you saying? No. Dog Shrine. In the console versions of the game, if you go underneath Sans and Papyrus's giant sink, it opens into this pocket dimension of greed that asks, no, demands, both for your wealth and your attention via a donation box set up for a very familiar looking dog. To be fair, it's your own complete fault for whatever happens in this part of the game. It warns you outright about getting a feeling of wasting time down here. But we press on. This is for science. Putting in the donations, though, takes time. You are forced to do it by a single G at a time, 1 by 1. It allows you a lot of time to appreciate how silly of a premise this all is, and the music in the area really drives in the fact that you're partaking of fool's errand. Honestly, knowing that the Dog Shrine quest was added in for the sole fact that PlayStation requires every game released on it to have achievements just makes this whole thing loop around into being funny. A sort of, don't you have anything better you could be doing? Like, in general? Your ultimate reward is what seems to be a quest of futility ultimately differs in whatever version you're playing. If it's the Xbox, it's a casino that Sans just runs an entire poker table at that you are too short to actually play at, so As a conclusion, he'll give running commentary on any of the prizes you win or buy, which means go back to Temmie again, you fool, you goober, you absolute buffoon. Hey, at least his visor is cute. The other, earlier version from the Nintendo Switch, though, introduces an entirely new boss fight with Mad Mew Mew, which played around with the gimmick of split controllers by having the player mess with the two halves of Frisk's soul, while a trans woman absolutely wails on you. I'm unashamed to say that I died at least twice. It was definitely tricky to figure out what I'd been relying on a DualShock controller's D-pad for my movements up until that point. She was a worthy opponent, and the fight was a lot of fun. Speaking of new experiences, we jump around between days here, but sometime between the beginning of my playthrough and what I really started getting the groove of it, I'd like to say that was after I'd gone through all of Snowdin and started exploring Waterfall. The anniversary livestream had started and my friends were asking me to join in. I hadn't really planned on doing it, but I figured there wasn't any harm. At worst, I could at least use it as some background noise while I worked on some art for my channel I was a bit behind on. These kinds of things didn't happen every day, you know. The anniversary stream started as I expected, with the exact same kind of atmosphere I'd found to be charming from the previous time Fangamer had done a stream in collaboration with Toby. The entire appeal, after all, hinges on whether or not you find three guys old enough to be dads playing a video game with a text-to-speech cutout of Toby Fox's dog Sona comforting or not. Thankfully, I didn't just find it comforting. I found it extremely entertaining. My friends and the Asking Air Discord server were abuzz with questions about whether or not Toby had changed something about this playthrough. He'd done it before for the Deltarune Chapter 1 stream, and so far it didn't seem like this would be anything more than a cozy playthrough with the occasional behind-the-scenes peek into Toby's mindset 10 years ago. I was more than happy to just have it on while I drew. And then he gets to the old home section of the ruins. I couldn't help but stare in awe when I got to that part of the VOD, even when I knew it was just a bunch of video editing bells and whistles. Frisk walks with purpose to find exactly what the player's looking for, nothing more and nothing less, and for a moment, just for a moment, all the years fell away, and the world opened up for the sake of something new. For just a moment, the underground got that much bigger. This was the realm of something new, something even more mind-blowing than a simple joke NPC or some changed dialogue. This was in the realm of believable. After that, I was locked in, to the point where my partner and I canceled a date so we could both watch the rest of it together on a Discord call. The rest of the streams were an exciting push and pull, a lull of the familiar, only to be jump-scared by a jazzy rendition of what used to be snores in another room, or Toby claiming he was lonely every time anyone had to get up to answer the door. I'll try not to ruin the rest of the live streams for you because I very much do believe the VODs are worth catching, but I'll talk about one more change I loved later. And yes, before anyone asks, I'm aware of this, I'll touch on it in a different video. Someday. I think a lot of you are overthinking it again. It was honestly really fun to go back and look at Undertale's pixel art during both the playthrough and the live streams. Deltarune is a downright gorgeous game, and I will forever be grateful for the way it has influenced my style, but there's something so nice and clean about some of the more simplistic areas of this first game that spoke to me a lot, both as a kid and now. Earlier areas like the ruins and graphical errors like Alphys' lab having a slightly different pixel shade are downright charming to me, and a part of me will probably forever chase the feeling of exploring Waterfall for the first time and drinking in its dark, moody beauty. Undertale somehow found a way to make a trash heap look appealing, and there is a reason why pretty much every Undertale animator back in the day was asked to do a Sans fight by their audience. The best of which hands down being by the one made by NCH Productions, by the way. The aesthetic of the Judgment Hall is unmatched. As an adult now, it's easier to put myself in the realm of hindsight and look at Undertale in a more objective lens. Frisk's separation from you as a player isn't driven nearly as far as it is in Deltarune, kept to a last-minute reveal depending on which route you decided to complete, and some pretty specific flavor text, like when Undyne notices they don't seem to be all that happy to be asking for a soda despite you having them ask for one. You're put on a pretty narrow and linear line when it comes to the story, with not much branching off unless you decide to go out of your way to do it. It's little things like that where you can tell what Toby meant about Undertale being his test game for Deltarune. But isn't that kind of the point? How even despite its shortcomings, it was still able to connect so strongly with what has to now have been millions of players, thanks for the vision that he had for this game. The beautiful and at times goofy art tied to it, and the strong writing at its core. These characters aren't just characters. For at least a little while, a spell is laid over as you play, and these are real people with thoughts and friends and goals and feelings that have absolutely nothing to do with you, and you just happen to cross paths with them for a while. It is and always has been one of Toby's greatest strengths as a writer that he's able to make such a wide cast of characters that say so much with so little time spent with them. And to drive this point home, I want to talk about what Toby did with Gerson. Gerson Boom was, and for all intents and purposes is, a side character that has a bit more dialogue than your average shopkeeper. He's meant to be someone that knows the history of the underground and can give the player a little bit of a backstory on the grounds of where he can remember it. You see, he's old. I'm old! Very, very old. Old enough to have seen the surface and lived through all the years that all of monsterkind has spent down in the underground. And he will just straight up forget some things until you can come back later and jog his memory. It's a cute way for the game to not tip its hat too early with some of the more rewarding info, like the backstory between Asgore being called King Fluffy Buns, while making Gerson a far more memorable character otherwise. He's kind and helpful too. To my knowledge, he is the only character who will straight up tell you where you can sell the items at, and the only area, mind you, even if he can't quite recall how to get there. The Undertale wiki calls him scatterbrained and testy, and I really can't think of a better way to describe the guy. He's old! Don't make him waste his time repeating himself, Sprout. He's humble, and he doesn't like to brag on himself, or his Hammer of Justice title, but don't you ever mistake that for him being weak in his old age. Gerson's just gotten craftier and craftier as time went on. Something that always stuck out to me was how, on a genocide run, he would explain to a player that there was no way they'd be able to get him because he was completely safe in a shopkeeper menu. And to this day, I can't help but find that incredibly cool. Gerson Boom is a cool turtle, and I always got the feeling that there was even more to him beyond the boundaries of what Undertale had to offer. And we are rewarded with that feeling when we go and play Deltarune, because lo and behold, there's a very familiar old man who knows the history of the prophecy behind the Deltarune, who is more than willing to make you take your time getting to the end. My notes just say insert more about Deltarune Gerson here. I love how the Dark World gives us a glimpse of what the Hammer of Justice part of him would have looked like. I love how his mentor-like personality is expanded on and the care he has for Susie, and that it doesn't stand in the way of him being a little goofy. Hell, that whole arc about her magic being tied to her confidence and him being a safe space for her to learn from him was excellent. He wasn't what I was expecting for Chapter 4, but he was a more than welcome addition to that world's alternative universe roster. When the 10th anniversary livestream was coming to an end, I couldn't have asked for a better farewell than seeing Gerson excavating Old Home and getting his perspective on the conflict between humans and monsters. To be able to send everyone off with a cool new sprite of him and some very, very interesting lore right at the end made me feel so happy that I felt like I could burst. Gerson Boom is a cool turtle. Look, I wish I could go into detail about how much joy I felt dripping from this game, how much of a blast it was to reconnect with something from my childhood. But I can't sell you on a lie, no matter how much I wish I could have lived it. I loved playing Undertale again in my time with it. But I also lost my job recently, And that sent me on a mental health spiral so catastrophic that I'm still feeling the effects from it. I sought medical attention and practically begged for help, only for it to make things exponentially worse. Do you know just how boring a day can be once you stop feeling any motivation, any pleasure? Cracks of the real world were already poking through. I don't ever think I'll forget the way my blood went cold when Undyne told me that I was worth more to the world dead, while my mom was watching a religious sermon centered around making people like me the enemy. Things in the game would just keep coming to me that were so devastatingly, achingly real. When I got to Bratty and Caddy's alleyway, I spent approximately 30 seconds registering that they were selling the cowboy hat and the empty gun before I closed the menu and turned right back around to Gerson and Temmie. I just couldn't leave Clover behind. When Frisk was in the True Lab and the Spectre tucked them in, I let them linger in bed for perhaps a bit too long. I spent an entire day playing the latter half of my True Pacifist run in what could only be described as a daze. I wanted to feel something, anything, so badly, only for the home section to hit me like a freight train. The moment I heard the soundtrack, I started crying, and once I did, the tears just wouldn't stop. I had to take a break from the game just so I could bawl my eyes out, and to this day, I still don't know why. I wrung every last bit of joy I could out of Undertale, and as much as I want to pretend otherwise, there is no more game waiting for me. I completed Undertale after another crying jag. Asriel and his everything never fails to get me, and the anniversary live streams out of words just made it hit all the more. This was it. This was all there is. No more side quests, no more Toriel trying to figure out how texting works, no less goal beyond the horizon. The game was over. It was time to let Frisk live the rest of their life. Time for me to move on. Flowey even said as much when I booted the game up one last time before I realized I needed to reload my save to get some very important footage I'd missed before. And the kicker is, something went wrong when I did. The music for the barrier overrode the farewell music, and with everyone standing in place there, looking at me, waiting, it was like a switch had turned off. You're not supposed to be here. I had fucked up in some way, and now I was paying the price for it. Reloading the save again fixed the issue, but it was too late. The spell had already broken. This was a game, and no matter what I could do, there wasn't anything left for me. Not anything that wasn't just a repeat of what I'd gone through. Not anything that was real. I struggled with writing the ending of this essay. How do you put to words just how numb and isolated you feel, and the only glimmers of something, any other emotion, feels so fleeting compared to the vast emptiness of the rest of the day? To try, despite it all, and brush against that feeling I had been chasing. And Undertale still won't let me go. I think about Sans a lot these days. How everyone headcanons him not as just apathetic but depressed. How he went through the story in his own way and kept an eye on us too, just like Toriel asked. I think about how he went through a character regression in Deltarune and how interesting that is, and how much I'm looking forward to seeing him again. And yes, of course, I think about Underfell. I'm always thinking about Underfell. How it'll always stay in that nebulous in-between because the canon of it is defined by an entire community, an internet with varying opinions on just what should happen in something that doesn't even exist outside of the mind. I love that we have fan games like Undertale Yellow and Delta Traveler that take up that mantle of making Toby Fox's works feel that much more real. I wonder, then, when everything started to feel so small. When I started to get old enough that the world felt like it was shrinking in on me instead of getting bigger and bigger. Undertale was a lifeline for me when I was younger because I was so lonely, and it gave me a community bigger than I could have ever imagined. I'm older now, and I'm lonely now in a different way. It's a lot harder to connect with something as an adult. A lot harder to let down your walls and allow yourself to. The live stream ended off with this hopeful message. The world is as big as you want it to be. Where will you go next? Maybe, if I say those words to myself enough times, maybe someday I can make myself finally start to believe them again.